Hello, welcome to another video. What was that? My name is Jamie. Sorry for the wave, don't know what that was. I'm here to talk to you about all the books that I read in November. I read 13 books. I'm just gonna go in chronological order of when I read them. Yeah, let's get into it. It is so crazy. It literally feels like so long ago that I read this first book, and also November's not even over yet at the time that I'm filming this, so that is wild to me. But the first book that I read in November was Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. This is a beautiful little story. I really like this. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Basically, it is about a cafe in Tokyo, and in this cafe you can travel through time, but there are a whole bunch of rules. Like, you have to sit in this one specific seat in the cafe. You have to like know exactly like what point of the past you're traveling to, and you can't leave that seat when you're there, and you can only be in that point of time until the coffee gets cold, and then you have to come back. It was just such a beautiful little story. It had like 4 little mini tales, however it was all quite linear, like all the stories were connected, so I hesitate to call this a short story collection. It just feels like anecdotes and vignettes set in the same world with the same characters. I just thought it was so beautifully told. It had so much heart. I do feel like people hyped this up a little bit for me in terms of like the emotional stakes, but nevertheless I still really enjoyed it. I think this is a really beautiful tale and just a really good for a rainy day, like a cute little book for a rainy day, you know, like if you've got some time, if you have a couple of hours on your hands, just sitting down and reading this, it just gives me all the cozy vibes. And yeah, I think all the stories and the concept and the characters, they're all really well written and really beautiful, so I really recommend this book. I'm very glad that I read it. The next book I read was on Kindle Unlimited, and that is Accidentally Amy by Lynn Painter. This is my first Lynn Painter after hearing a lot of like really positive stuff about this author. So I picked this up on Kindle Unlimited and then gave it 1 star. It was not great. I actually read this in a reading vlog where I gave very in-depth criticisms about this. Well, not in-depth, I would say, more scathing. I feel like scathing is the right word. But this is basically a romance about this woman who has this brand new job. She has this kind of like meet cute with this hot guy at Starbucks. She realizes that he is her boss, and then they start this kind of like texting relationship because they're not allowed to have a real relationship, but obviously it turns into a real relationship. Yeah, this one wasn't for me. I felt the writing to be so cringe. I feel like our main character didn't speak like a normal adult woman. I feel like she spoke like a teenager, or preteen, actually a preteen. And then our guy was really bland, like our male main character was so bland, and there was so many pop culture references that just kind of made me cringe. Like the male main character literally at one stage quotes the lyrics to All Too Well by Taylor Swift. All Too Well, great song, one of my favorite songs. I don't want to see it in a romance novel. I don't want to see those lyrics being quoted, especially because I don't even know if that's allowed. Isn't that like copyright? You know, writing her lyrics? Anyways, and yeah, the third act conflict, not good. I just feel like it wasn't very well written. Also, I know it's self-published, so I know there are going to be things like this, but I felt like there were just way too many grammatical errors and spelling mistakes. And I know this is such a nitpicky thing, and like I have glossed over grammatical errors and spelling mistakes in the past. That is fine, but in this sense, there were so many it was distracting. Maybe I'm being too harsh because I didn't like the novel, but even so, I still 1 star, not a fan. After that, I read Lemon by Kwon Yo-sun. I rated this 4 out of 5 stars. I thought it was really good, really interesting. Now that I'm sitting here talking about it, I can't really remember that much about it, so maybe it's more of like a 3 star. I think that's probably one of the curses of reading so many books in a month, is that your brain holds on to some of them and some of the other ones it doesn't. Regardless, anyway, this is a book about this teenage girl who was murdered in high school, and we follow this girl's sister, you know, years later, still trying to find out what happened to her sister, and just kind of like talking to a bunch of people that were kind of involved in this case at the time. I just feel like this was definitely more of like a character study book. It really went quite in depth to the psychological effects that this whole case had on our main character, and I found that to be really interesting. I really liked the characters. I thought it was a nice like fast read, and there were a couple of chapters that were just written so well. It was so haunting. Specifically, those chapters were from the perspective of a different character, and basically it was just all a one-sided phone call conversation. So it was kind of written like a monologue, but the way that it was written, it was just honestly sent chills down my spine. So I thought this book was really atmospheric, really chilling, and just really solid as a novel. So I'm glad that I read it, even though I can't remember too much about it. I thought it was really good, and I do definitely recommend this one. The next 4 books are books that I read for my 24-hour readathon, which I do monthly. So these ones I'm not going to go too in depth in because I already have in a previous video, but they are Neanderthal Opens the Door to the Universe by Preston Norton. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars. I think it was a pretty solid YA novel. I just wish that I had read it maybe a couple of years earlier. But basically we follow our main character Cliff. He is kind of dealing with the aftermath of the death of his brother who committed suicide, and then this other high school bully like gets knocked unconscious and is in a coma, and then wakes up from the coma and all of a sudden wants to be Cliff's friend because apparently he got a message from God. So this is a really like theological book. Like there's a lot of religious themes in here, which I actually really liked. Despite not being a super religious person, I love books with religious themes, and I think it's because I'm very fascinated by religion and I'm very interested in it, even though my beliefs differ from that. But this was just really good. Like I did really like it. I think it was really hard hitting and really sad. However, I just think there are a few loose ends that I think weren't wrapped up super nicely. Like there are a bunch of different storylines in here, and I feel like some were definitely more developed than others. For example, our main character Cliff has a really awful father. Like his father is very abusive, and I feel like that storyline wasn't wrapped up or fully fleshed out compared to the others, and I would have much rather to hear about that and have that been wrapped up rather than like the romance in here, for example. However, I still think it was good. If you are a YA reader, like mostly YA reader, I definitely would recommend this because I haven't really heard anyone talk about it. But yeah, it's very similar to like the John Green sort of vibe, if you remember that sort of vibe. Yeah, anyway, I thought it was good. I liked it. And yeah, next I read The Dare by Harley LaRue. This is a little smutty novella. This was an interesting little book. Basically, it all takes place in one night. It's a party. There's this girl, they're like college students. This girl wins a game of beer pong with this guy that she used to have like a flirtatious relationship with at high school, but he's a bit of a weirdo, like a bit of a freak. Anyway, she loses this game of beer pong, and so she has to like become his slave for the night. Yeah, it's very sexual. It's smutty. However, it was really well written. Like, I'm not talking about the sex. Like, sex scenes for me, take it or leave it. Like, I don't really need them. I don't really care about them. However, the connection between the two characters was actually really solid. So I feel like I actually had a fun time reading this. I really think if this was like a full-length novel and like it didn't take place over one night, it was also like there was stuff going on as well, and we could like, we were there for the backstory and we were there for the aftermath of this night. I actually feel like I would really love it. So I need to look up this author and see if she's written any full-length novels, because I could be interested. Let me know. Let me know if you've read this novella, and if you're like, oh, I know a full-length novel exactly like that, let me know, because I'm keen. Then I read another Kindle Unlimited book. Oh no, not Kindle Unlimited. I think this was just like for free on Kindle, so I bought it. It's The Breakdown by B.A. Paris. This is a thriller. It's about a woman who believes she has early onset Alzheimer's, and she also believes that there's like a murderer after her, because there was a murder of like this woman that took place kind of by her house. Like everyone around her is like, no, you're going crazy. You know, no one really believes her. So I rated this 2 out of 5 stars because first of all, I probably just shouldn't have read this book, because people like not believing the main character is one of my least favorite plot devices in the world. I just get so frustrated and so angry at this plot device. So this book probably just wasn't for me. Also, I thought the writing was a bit bland, and also the ending, it just kind of ended. Like it didn't really wrap up. It was just like, anyway, this is the plot twist, end the book. And I needed more. I just felt quite lazy, and I'm not here for that. I do want to read more by this author because I know that this author is a pretty popular thriller author. I'll give them another chance, but this definitely wasn't my favorite thriller I've ever read. And then I read For Your Own Good by Samantha Downing. I ended up giving this 3 out of 5 stars. So it was good, but it was a little bit more disappointing because I had really high expectations for it when I really shouldn't have. That was my mistake. But basically, Samantha Downing wrote one of my all-time favorite thrillers, which is My Lovely Wife, which is why I was expecting such like really good things from this. But I just think that the characters were a little bit too dimensional. Main character Teddy, he was just so cartoony. Like, he was such a cartoony villain. And I also feel like Samantha Downing kind of gave us too much information too early on, because, and this is also a personal thing, I really love when my thrillers have an aspect of mystery about them. I really like, you know, plot twists. I really like trying to figure out where the story is going to go, whereas it was all just kind of handed to us. And yes, it was like, you know, a crime novel, and it was thrilling, and it was like edge of your seat, what's going to happen next. I just feel like I wish the author had like withheld a little bit more from us so we could kind of find out as we go, rather than just kind of like expecting what was going to happen. Regardless, I still liked it. I think Samantha Downing does create a really good plot, and she does weave together storylines and characters really well. So I do recommend this as a thriller, but I just feel like there's also just like better thrillers out there. But it was solid, like I don't regret reading it. Then I read a Kindle Unlimited book. This is The Fifth Letter by Nicola Moriarty, who is Leanne Moriarty's sister, and I love Leanne Moriarty. Nicola Moriarty is her sister, and this is her like fun little suburban mom drama book. I rated this 2 out of 5 stars. I feel like it was just messy. It was just messy. I actually believe I read this in my 24-hour readathon and in my screen time video. Yeah, actually everything that I'm about to talk about from now is from my screen time video as well, so I won't go super in depth with these either. But yeah, I don't know, it was just like a bit silly and just not very well written and really like shallow. Like, I feel like a lot of things were told to us rather than shown, and it just ended really quickly as well. Like, I feel like this actually, I don't say this often, I do not say this often, but I feel like this book maybe could have had like an extra at least 70 pages of development. I just feel like it all wrapped up too quickly. Yeah, a lot of loose ends. I wasn't the biggest fan of this one, and yeah, it was just a bit silly. I wasn't a fan. And then, oh my goodness, and then I finished A Long Way Down by Krista and Becca Ritchie. I loved this. I rated this 4 out of 5 stars as well. This is the second to last book in the Calloway Sisters series. I'm just obsessed with it. Like, I'm obsessed with the whole series. I thought this was really, really well told, really beautifully written, a nice, like, just intense read. Like, even though I don't love the main characters of this book, it all wraps up so nicely. I wish I could tell you more about how I felt about it, but I'm saving it for a specific, like, Addicted Calloway Sisters video, which I've said so many times, so you're sick of me saying that. But yeah, just know I read this in November as well, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and I really liked it. Then I read Carrie Soto is Back by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which is definitely my favorite book that I read this month. This was 5 out of 5 stars. I absolutely was obsessed with this. This basically tells the story of Carrie, who is a famous tennis player. She holds the world record for like amount of tournaments won. However, there's a newcomer who is coming up and is about to beat her record. So Carrie Soto decides to come out of retirement and just play a few final tournaments up against this newcomer as well, while being coached by her dad again. And then there's this other character who's also kind of doing the same thing, but for like men's tennis. And oh my god, just the characters in here were so beautiful. This also was like, got me so invested in tennis. I didn't think that it could do that. Like, I never thought a book could make me interested in something that I had no interest in. This has made me really interested in tennis. I now want to watch tennis. But also on top of that, it was just a really beautiful story about a woman's relationship with her career, a woman's relationship with love, a woman's relationship with her single father. Like, it was just such a beautiful character study, while also having a very engaging plot. I just feel like Taylor Jenkins Reid, in my eyes, with her literary universe she's created, can do no wrong. Like, every single one of these 4 books have been 5 stars. So I highly, highly, highly recommend this if you haven't read it yet. And especially if you're a Taylor Jenkins Reid fan. I know that if you don't love Taylor Jenkins Reid writing style, you probably won't be into this. However, I know she's got a lot of fans. If you are like put off by the sports element of it, like I low-key was, this is your PSA. Read this book. I think it's my favorite. I think it's my favorite. Like, over Evelyn Hugo, or if not, at least equal to Evelyn Hugo. Like, wow, I absolutely adore it. Then I read Nothing Can Hurt You by Nicola May Goldberg. Sorry, I'm gonna go rapid fire now because my camera just alerted me that it's dying. Yeah, this was an interesting little thriller novel about a woman who was killed, and throughout the novel we follow a bunch of different characters who were kind of connected to this woman. I thought it was good. I rated it 3 out of 5 stars, and I liked hearing from all these different characters, and I thought they were all well fleshed out. I thought they all had their own voice, which was really great. However, there were a few chapters in here and characters in here that I just felt really disconnected from. Like, I feel like they didn't really fit the vibe of the rest of the story. And I also feel like, again, the ending really failed me for this one. I feel like it wasn't wrapped up very nicely and was just a bit weird. It could have been done differently. Yeah, I feel like the biggest theme of this month is disappointing endings. But yeah, I rated it 3 out of 5 stars. I do like think it's pretty good. I do recommend it. Then I read Hook, Line and Sinker by Tessa Bailey, another really disappointing read. I rated this 1 out of 5 stars. If you saw my screen time for reading time video, you'll know all the details. But basically, I just really didn't like these main characters. I thought that like they just weren't fun to read about. Like the main female main character was really boring, and then the male main character kept blaming everyone else for his own actions and his own thoughts, and when really it's like you're the only one who can fix these problems, and like you created these problems for yourself regardless. Like, stop blaming other people. I just wasn't interested in them. I wasn't interested in the romance. I was not rooting for them, and they just didn't have the same charm. Like, this whole book did not have the same charm as the first book. However, that's not gonna deter me from the author, but I would say like skip this one, guys. It was 1 out of 5 stars. Not as bad as Accidentally Amy, but pretty close. And then finally, I read Promises and Pomegranates. This was another Kindle Unlimited book, and it's a Hades and Persephone retelling and my first ever mafia romance. I'm so scared about my camera dying, so I'm just gonna quickly say I rated this 4 out of 5 stars. I am now gonna read all the other books in the rest of this companion novel series, which is all like mythological retellings in like non-fantasy settings. I loved this. I thought the characters were really good. I thought the writing style was great. Like, yes, you know, it's not the most idealistic, like I need this romance in my life, like they're so cute couple goals. However, such amazing escapism. Loved it. Genuinely really good. Honestly, recommend this. If you've never read a mafia romance as well, this is a really good place to start because the characters were actually like really sweet with each other. Like, yeah, obviously they, you know, were quite rough around the edges and were quite harsh to each other. The moments of gentleness really like was so solid. So yeah, I really liked this. Hello everyone, sorry, new outfit, new Jamie, new day. When I filmed this video, it wasn't actually the end of November yet, and I filmed it early because I thought I wouldn't have time to do any more reading or film the video, and then my time freed up. I actually read 2 more books in November which I want to share with you because I am not going to remember them by the time December comes around to talk about them. So the first book that I'm going to mention that I read in like the last week of November was The 9 Lives of Rose Napolitano by Donna Freitas. This was a very interesting read. I ended up giving it 3 out of 5 stars. It's basically like we follow kind of a sliding doors effect storyline. We follow our main character Rose, but she's a career woman, right? She's very, very intense about her career. She's married and her husband really wants to have a child, but she has always said from the beginning that she doesn't want to be a mother. So this causes some tension. And this one argument between the two then veers off into 9 different storylines, and all of them center around motherhood. So there are obviously a few storylines where Rose is like, okay, fine, let's go for it. There are other few storylines where she's like, no, they divorced. There's a bunch of different things that happen here. I thought it was a very interesting read. I really enjoyed my time reading it, and I think it was very well written. However, my one thing, which is making me hesitate to not give it more than 3 stars, is the fact that I feel like the message and the moral of the story kind of got a bit lost. And I don't want to speak too much about this because it will spoil the novel, but I think at the end of the day, like the biggest thing and what really drew me to this book is that, oh my god, we're reading about this woman who doesn't want to be a mother. She is saying no to like society's expectations of women in the workforce and women having to give up their jobs. You know, I feel like this is a very interesting topic. I really love novels like this. The message kind of got lost, not what I was expecting, and I feel like the message of the story just kind of ended up not having that much impact by the end of it. Yeah, it was an interesting read. I loved the concept, so fun. However, I'm not gonna rate it higher than 3 stars. But yeah, I definitely recommend it if you, I haven't seen anyone talk about this. If you wanna like try something new that not many people are talking about, I would, yeah, give it a go, give it a go. You might like it more than me. And then the next book that I read in November is Twisted Love by Anna Huang. I'm actually reading this for a video that's not out yet. I'm doing a reading vlog for the full series, so I'm currently in the middle of the second book, which is Twisted Games. I rated this 3 out of 5 stars because yes, it wasn't perfect, but it was actually so fun. It's like a enemies to lovers, brothers, best friend romance. It was also very sinister and kind of like thrilling. Like there was like kind of a thriller plot line at the same time. Kind of here for it. I loved our main character Ava. Did not like the male love interest Alex. He was just a bit too toxic for me, like a little bit too like touch her and you die and I'll beat you up. And it's like, okay, relax, like very possessive, very jealous, not my cup of tea. And also it was so far-fetched and so ridiculous. Like, you really have to suspend your disbelief when you read this, and I kind of loved that. Like, it was a big escapism moment for me. I loved that it wasn't super realistic, but it very much toes the line of being like incredibly corny and wacky and a bit silly. I like that. I'm a silly Billy myself, so I love silly Billy books. And yeah, I did enjoy it, and I'm enjoying reading the rest of the series. So yeah, I also read this. Before I take you back to Jamie from the past, who is going to do the conclusion, I just wanted to mention I have recently started a Patreon. Our first month where we do all these things is in December. It'll be linked down below. You get 3 extra live shows, 3 extra videos, and we get a movie night, and we get 2 different book clubs. So there's 2 books that we read together, and it's not like you're not billed on the 1st of the month. So if you're watching this on like the 27th of December and you want to join but you're worried about being paid twice in like 1 week, do not worry, that does not happen. You just subscription billing. You get billed when you first join, and then a month later you get billed again. But yeah, I really hope you would consider joining. We're already having so much fun, and it's only been up for like 3 days. Already we're having the time of our lives. You don't want to get FOMO. But yeah, that's enough of me selling myself, and I will let you finish the video now. But yeah, those are all the books that I read in November. I'm sorry that this video got a bit, you know, messy at the end, but you know, we've got to work with what we have. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you all so much. Let me know what your favorite book of November was, and also let me know if you agree or disagree with any of my opinions in the comments down below. Let's have a discussion. It's my favorite thing to do. So again, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I'll see you very soon in the next one, and I love you lots. Bye.